Hey, prepare to be triggered because I'm going to tell you why Batman sucks. So let the triggering begin. As far as I can tell, for the most part, people who like Batman aren't people who read comics, or if they do, they read comics casually. They're mostly, I guess, they're the same type of people that think Venom and Carnage are cool, which are children, people who were children when the animated series came out in the 90s, and they remember that, wow, those characters look cool. I guess I like them. People who like Batman like him because he looks cool. That's a bit hyperbolic, but so Batman is a trash character. Batman's trash. So I will say I haven't really been following Batman in a couple years. Uh, there was a time when I read basically everything, and I prided myself that I knew what was happening and the major storylines for virtually every character. But honestly, now I just can't be bothered to read something that I don't like. And since the reboot of the DC universe with the new 52, I haven't really been following Batman. I jumped in and read Court of Owls, and it's going to shock a lot of people because I know people love that run, but I thought it was terrible. I didn't like Scott Snyder's run at all. Thought it was just really sophomoric and tropey. Oh, who's the villain? He's Batman's long lost brother who's evil. Get out of here. I guess Batman's parents had a child. They put him in an institute, and they guess they didn't tell their lawyers or anybody about it. So he just remained there after they died, slowly going insane. That sounds good. It wasn't good. It was trash. I do still jump in from time to time if I hear there's been a good issue. Like I read that issue a couple weeks ago with the Suicide issue, which I didn't like either because I don't really like Batman. And if I know Nightwing's going to show up, I'll pick it up because I do like Nightwing. Because unlike Batman, Nightwing is not a trash character. I really like him a lot. So what's my issue with Batman? My issue with Batman is that the character primarily he makes no sense. He follows no set of internal logic or consistency, and he operates in a completely different manner than how he is presented in the comic books. So if you think about who Batman is in your mind, what are the themes he represents? Who does DC Comics say Batman is? And then think about what he's been doing. Like Batman's supposed to be the smartest guy in the room. He's the best at virtually everything, jack of all trades, master of all trades. That's an interesting character. Knows the solution to every problem, has a plan for every possible outcome, and yet he's been dealing with the same villains over and over and over again for 80 years, decades on decades, fighting the same guys. That's not that's not the smartest guy in the room. That's not someone who has a plan for every situation. This guy doesn't even have a plan to deal with the fucking penguin. He's still dealing with the penguin. And I'm supposed to suspend my disbelief and imagine that, I guess, it is what it is. It's not what it is. I don't accept that. This guy's supposed to be, first of all, he doesn't trust the criminal justice system enough to let them apprehend these villains. But he does trust them enough to keep them in prison. Even though the prisons in Gotham City and the DC universe and comics in general are a revolving door system, and they just walk in and walk right back out, and he deals with them again in a couple weeks. And he has no solution to that problem. Does that sound like Batman? From what you know about who Batman is, does he sound like someone that would just let that situation keep going on and on and on and on and never do anything about it? Now, this isn't a rant to say Batman needs to kill his villains. I don't necessarily think that he does. There are other options for him. I mean, killing them would solve that problem, but then you write off your intellectual property, which is not a great thing to do. But you know what Batman probably would do is The first time he apprehended someone, turned them over to the criminal justice system, and they got out of prison and committed another crime and killed another person, Batman would shut that shit down. If the character operated like how we're told he operates, he would shut that down instantly. There would be a private prison set up in the Batcave, and he'd make sure that they stayed there. He'd probably do a better job of rehabilitating them than, because it's rehabilitation's not happening in Arkham Asylum or Blackgate. So you might say, Kyle, that's not a problem unique to Batman. That's a problem with comic books in general. All the heroes are dealing with the same villains over and over and over again. The status quo never changes. When it does shift away slightly, it's back to normal in a couple months. And that might be true, except for other characters aren't the same as Batman. They're different. Let's take Wolverine, for example. Yeah, he's been dealing with the same villains over and over and over again for decades, but guess what? Wolverine isn't the same thematically as Batman. He's not. He is the best there is at what he does. But you know what is another important integral part of Wolverine's character is that he's a failure. He's failed at virtually everything he's ever tried to do, multiple times. But he dusts himself up and he keeps trying over and over again, even if he's ultimately doomed to fail. That's part of his character. That's not part of Batman's character. That's not who Batman is it? Batman is supposed to be the best. Thematically, those are the themes that he represents. You know, pretty juvenile. My dad can beat up your dad. Batman's so great. Themes. And then he just fails over and over again, but we're supposed to ignore it. These characters don't represent the same themes that Batman represents. Like, Marvel's telling different stories with Spider-Man than DC is telling with Batman. That I have a lot of problems with what Marvel's doing with Spider-Man right now, and I have a lot of problems with what Marvel's doing across the board right now, and I might make a video on that, except for I feel like it might be 12 videos worth of ranting because I'm not happy at all. Too much information. So it's my opinion that Batman is the single worst character in the entire Bat family. All the characters in the franchise are infinitely more interesting than he is. Commissioner Gordon, Nightwing's my personal favorite. Tim Drake. Oh, I'm sorry. Batman's not the single worst character in the Bat family. That's dated information. The single worst character in the Bat family is Damon Wayans. He is garbage. Complete trash. Can't stand him. Sorry, Grant Morrison fans. I think the mere existence of Damon Wayans completely devalues Batman's relationships with the previous Robins in a completely unacceptable way. When Jason Todd came back to life and he saw the Joker was still alive, he was pretty peeved off about that, and he confronted Batman, and Batman basically said, you know, like, I'm never going to cross that line. I won't cross that line. And then the first thing he does when Damon Wayans dies is go off to kill the guy who killed him. Now, he didn't do it because it was a clone, so, oh, that's all that's left of my son, I better not do it. But basically what that tells us is that he didn't have a line he wouldn't cross. He just didn't give a shit about Jason Todd. And I'm not a fan of that. I don't like that one bit. It completely devalues Batman's relationship with the other Robins, and all of them, even Jason Todd, who isn't great, are better characters than Damon Wayans. His existence is a disservice to better characters, and he should disappear. So you might be saying, you know, Batman killing his villains or locking them up, it's not interesting storytelling. And maybe that's true. But, you know, DC decides what stories they're telling with this character. If they want to tell the stories they're telling, they have to change the character, and they can do that because they have complete control over him. If they want to tell stories that make sense, give us a reason for why this stuff is happening. Like, why is Batman allowing this cycle to just perpetuate itself over and over again? Because based on who they say he is, that wouldn't be happening. So they can decide if they want to change, if they want to provide rationale and reasoning for why the character operates the way he does. Because now he just seems like he's some thrill-seeking adrenaline junkie who just wants to kung fu fight dudes in an alley and doesn't really care. Because If he's the character that they say he is, then the only reason he's allowing this shit to happen is because he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care. Because the character they say he is would stop it, and he chooses not to. And why is that? Yeah. Another thing that I don't like about the character is that the DC street level comic book lines pretty much just kind of circulate Batman and revolve around him. I much prefer the Marvel method where it's much more compartmentalized and there's a bunch of different characters that have their own purview and kind of operate independently of each other, even though they do interact, like Captain America and Daredevil, Iron Fist, Shang Chi, Elektra. Like these, they have a string of street level characters kind of off doing their own thing, but everything in the DC street level is more or less tethered to Batman, which is irritating because he's an uninteresting character, and better characters are shackled to him. Yeah, so that's why I think Batman is a garbage character, complete trash. If you like him because he looks cool, and you were a child and you watched the Batman the animated series. So let the downvotes begin. Peace.